Hello everyone, greetings of the day. This is an audio clip to put forward my view on time, how it is defined and perceived, and how changing its definition might change our perspective on time and time travel. According to Oxford Dictionary, that which is measured in hours, minutes, and seconds is time. But Webster's, which I think has a better definition, says the measured or measurable period during which an action, process, or condition exists or continues is time. You can just Google time as well, and it gives a pretty decent definition, somewhat similar to the Webster's definition. But I want to take time and redefine it. Please stick with me. Time is an important aspect of every living being's life because life is literally the time you have as a conscious or a sentient being. In this aspect, we can see that time has existed before us or any other being and will still exist even after we stop existing. But it is completely different from what we experience as time. Our time starts when we start existing and stops when we stop existing. Then what about the rest of the objects in the universe? Does their time stop after they stop existing as well? I will try my best to paint the picture of time I have in my head. Hopefully it is worth your while. What I'm trying to point out is that time has always existed before anyone noticed it, and it will exist as long as there are any two unique objects which can influence each other in any way in a system. So for the definition of time, I would define time as a state of being of any object in relation to any other object or objects present in the same system. Let me elaborate on that definition. The first and the simplest measure of time is most likely day and night, which every creature in the earth can discern, except for maybe some deep sea creatures. Regardless, we humans add in a more simpler measure of time in a day and define other measure of time as well, like week, month, and year. But when we take all of these away, we are still left with days and nights, periods where sun is in the sky and sun is not in the sky. So our time is relative to the sun. Similarly, this would be true to all objects which are influenced by the sun. Now to talk about the other major aspect of time. Time is always used to measure the duration in which a change has occurred in any object's state. For instance, boiling water takes different amount of time in different conditions. But when the condition is identical, the duration of change will be constant. That would be the measure of time, which is currently done using quartz crystal or by measuring the distance traveled by light. The aspect I'm trying to focus on is the change in the state of the object. The change in the state of object is constantly occurring in our universe and thus we observe time. Let us take this change of state as state of decay, as every object in the universe is constantly moving towards its non-existence. All objects have their own level of preservation, but their eventual non-existence is just pushed further by it and not nullified. So, when time is taken as a state of being of any object in relation to any other object or objects in the same system, time travel would get more and more complex with inclusion of every new variable. In our context, our system is the whole known universe. But even if we only take our galaxy as our system, time travel would simply be unachievable due to the sheer complexity of the math involved. If you want to move, say 10 days in the future or past, you'd have to know the detail of the entire universe and how it had changed in that period. That period probably isn't much in context of the universe, but what about all the energy and change of state all the object has gone through due to the influence of that energy? Will all the energy emitted by sun in that 10 days revert back to its source? The nuclear fusion and fission both produce huge amount of energy, and where will energy from such billions of stars go? What my definition of time is pointing to is that time is simply not directional and should not be perceived as a distance or something traversable between 2 points. What we perceive as a point in time uh, is just a state where millions of objects in the universe are all in a unique state influenced by each other. Each state of being is unique and might not even be achieved a second time throughout the object's existence in the same form or other forms when it is taken relative to the objects within the system. But this should not change the measure of time as it has been established. Just the concept of time in itself and how time travel would not be possible without astronomical advancement in today's technology and mathematics, especially to the past, due to the involvement of millions of variables which has not been recorded. As for traveling to the future, it might be possible if we were to preserve the state of being of an object completely, while the rest of the system goes through their changes. Even the atomic level activity of that object would have to be preserved and restored perfectly after a certain duration. Then the object would have traveled to the future while maintaining its state of being that is from the past. Otherwise, we experience this time travel in a daily basis where our state of being isn't preserved and we wake up to a new day and a new future every day. That said, the experiment the experiment in which the peoples inside a high-speed train perceive time differently to those outside should also show the same effect as the preservation of state of being of an object. The preservation of state of being of an object and the way the high-speed train experiment works out, it would take an object out of the system it is already in by not letting the other objects in the same system influence the object's state of being. The difference experienced by the participants of the high-speed train experiment is most likely the influence which was mitigated while they were moving at such high velocity. The difference experienced by the participants of the high-speed train experiment is most likely the influence which was mitigated. The difference experienced by the participants The difference experienced by the participants of the high-speed train experiment is most likely the influence which was mitigated while they were moving at such high velocity. This also goes to imply that if an object is by itself in an isolated system, it wouldn't have a time, because the system preserves its condition as it is not influenced by anything. And if it isn't and if its state of decay is observable from outside its system, it will probably go into a cycle or a constant state